the early hours before dawn breaks. There are those who get up before the rest of the world wakes, who sweat and strain. And why do they do this? Beats me. Probably because they're crazy.
Welcome back to Light-Minded Arts. I am Brent Lindstrom, and today we are talking publishing. More importantly, self-publishing. So if you didn't catch my episode on traditional publishing, go check it out in the previous episode. For those of you watching who are interested in following me for my filmmaking, I will be discussing the short that I put together here at the beginning, at the very end of this, so stick around. But today we're going to also assume that you have a couple of those same things taken care of that you did in that episode, namely that your book is finished and that your edit is complete. So to start off, you're going to want to figure out who you're going to print and distribute your book through. This process may change depending on what works best for you. I'm going to share with you my process, and you can either copy it or you can go with someone else. For me, I like to use IngramSpark. IngramSpark, when you first sign up for them, you're going to go to their help guide and you're going to pick up two things from them. First is going to be a design guide for your book, and the second is going to be a cover template. Now, you can't fully do this cover template until you have your book completely in a publishable format, so there's going to be a little back and forthing here, but let me at least get you started on the process that I use. First off, you're going to figure out about the size of your book. And I'm not talking how thick it is. I mean, that'll come as you start putting it in your publishing software. But first, you're going to decide how big do you want your book? You know, is it going to be a 5x8 type of a dimension? Or is it going to be 4.5 by 7 3/8? I mean, there's a bunch of different formats. When you go onto Ingram, you can find out all the different sizes of books that they have there. So what I would do first is I would settle on a standard book design or shape. Then I would go find an artist. Now, I have done my own covers before. On all of my trunk novels, you'll probably notice that the art on those is not all that great, and that's because I'm not a great artist. I did those all on my own. However, on my last book, One for the Money, Two for the Soul, I hired an artist named Wes Wheeler. He's an awesome artist, shout out to him, but he has done book designs before. And if you can find an artist who has done book designs before, they can match your book with industry standards, something that is going to help sell your book better than just some random picture that you design or that maybe you have AI help you with. And maybe AI is getting better at that, I don't know. But I would recommend finding an artist who has done this kind of thing in the past and is pretty good at it. Now, when you approach an artist, you're going to want to ask for a couple of things from him. First is going to be a cover image, which should fit the size of the book you want. So let's assume that we're doing a 5-inch wide by 8-inch tall book. I'm going to ask him for a book cover that matches those dimensions. I'm also going to ask him for another thing. It kind of goes with it, but I would ask him for a second image, one that has the spine and the back cover included in it, because those aren't too hard to make. They're usually not going to be as detailed as the front cover. The spine's pretty important. The back just needs to look good and fit with the rest of the image. But the cover is most important. The spine is probably second most important on there. So you're going to want to have those taken care of, but I like to have them in separate files just so that I can use the one for, the book and then one for posting on the internet or wherever it needs to go. And you could use Photoshop to crop out the front image, so that's why you could do it all in one file also. But there's another format that you're going to need. You need to specify this with them. You need an exact square image, so maybe it's an 8x8 or a 6x6 image of the front cover. And that's because usually your wording on your front cover is going to be up at the top and down at the bottom. Usually your title up at the top, your name at the bottom, or some variation of that. But if you were to try to turn this image into a complete square, something is going to have to stretch so that you can fit everything on there. and that doesn't look good. It doesn't look professional. So you're going to need an image where they bring the text down and crop off the bottom and the top, or resize the image in a way that doesn't distort the whole image. And that is for your ebook. Now, I label this as my first step because depending on the artist, this could take a little bit of time to get done. The second step I would do is I would take your book, your manuscript, and put it into a publishing style software. So I write most of my stuff in Microsoft Word. There's other programs out there that are more geared towards authors, but I do a lot of my work in Word. And that's mostly just because sometimes I'm working at home, sometimes I'm at the office, and I'm very familiar with Word. I'm not familiar with Scrivener or some of those other types of things out there. So I use Word. But a word processor is not going to be your best bet for formatting your book because you're going to need to follow the design guides set forth by your printer, in my case, IngramSpark. So for me, I use Adobe InDesign because I have an Adobe subscription and it's included in that. And that's a very complicated software, at least for me, so I'm not going to go into how to use it. If you're going to use that, I'd suggest YouTube. It's a great option. It helps you figure out how to put this all together. But for me, I do two formats. I do a print format in InDesign, and then I also do an ebook version in there, usually an EPUB version. So I will assemble this book in there, and then I will also add a copyright page onto the front of it. By the time I get that far, I know exactly how many pages I'm going to have in this book. This is also a time where if you want, you could have those author's notes or dedication pages or things like that. But in any case, once you have it in there, you know how many pages you have, and then you can go back to your cover template designer in IngramSpark, and you can custom make a template that matches the size of your book and the thickness of your book. Once you can get that, I would send that over to your artist so that they can finish sizing your cover art to the exact dimensions of your book. Once I have that formatted, then I will go through and do a few other things. One is I need an ISBN. You know the barcode on the back, and it has a little code on the top? That is your ISBN number. It's different from a standard barcode, so don't assume that because maybe you find a barcode somewhere that you can throw that on in your cover. No, you need an ISBN number. And for that, I have a subscription at Boker. And on Boker, there's a tab called My Identifiers, and I have bought a whole bunch of those in bulk, which is good because when you do this, you're going to need an ISBN number for every format that you use. You'll need one for your print copy. If you have a hardback and a paperback, you'll need one for each of those. You'll need one for your ebook. You'll need one for an audiobook if you have that. So the ISBN numbers, you'll need more than just one. And depending on the route you go, say you're publishing through Kindle Direct or something like that, they can provide you your own there. But this is the route that I go, so this is a little bit different from their format. So I get my ISBN numbers, and then I'll fill out all the relevant information for that. And that also helps for people who are looking up your book. They can find descriptions on it and who it's targeted towards. And so, yeah, I just handle all that on my own. And come to think of it, that will actually give you the barcode when you go to the cover template design on IngramSpark. So maybe you should put this one above getting your cover template. So anyhow, I would have my ISBN number. And also you're going to want to put that ISBN number on your copyright page. Another option that you can do, which is completely optional, but I think it's helpful, is to send your manuscript off to the copyright office. It's not completely necessary because once you've published, it is automatically under copyright from what I understand. However, I do find some comfort in having that paper from them saying that, yes, you do own this copyrighted version of this. Some people go as far as copyrighting every draft of their book in case it gets stolen. I think that's maybe a little bit overkill. But hey, you know, we're in a litigious society, and maybe especially when it comes to movie scripts where things get shared around a lot, that might not be a bad idea. But when you're just doing your book, I don't think that's all that necessary. The next place I'd submit your book to is the Library of Congress. So the Library of Congress is going to also give you a Library of Congress number. This I feel is very invaluable. I don't think it's necessary because a lot of self-published authors do not do this step. However, I suggest doing it because it's going to help actual librarians document your book. It's going to be easier to find. It makes your book more professional, and I would not skip it for anything. Keep in mind, though, that if you want to stay on the Library of Congress's good side, once you have your book actually in print, they're going to ask you to send 2 copies to them. So just make sure you don't forget to do that. So I've got this as step 7 now, that you will want to make your cover template generator. I had you do that a little bit earlier, but that was mostly for the artist's reference. This time I would go through and I would include the ISBN number. I'd get it all finalized how you want. Maybe something has changed in your book. Maybe you edited something in the last few weeks that has changed the page count. In any case, get your template generated. Hopefully by this point, your cover artist has finished his artwork and you can take that and this generated template into Photoshop or whatever program you want to use, and you can start combining them together, making them into what is going to be your final cover. If you're not very familiar with using Photoshop, I'm sure there's other programs out there that'll do it, or you could probably hire someone pretty cheap to do this for you. But since it's going to be printed in color, most likely in color, I would guess, you're going to want to have the PDF version of it exported in CMYK format. This is different from RGB color because RGB is meant for computer screens and TV screens, whereas CMYK is made for print. And if you submit an RGB color format to IngramSpark, you are going to get the wrong kind of colors on your cover, if they even, assuming they actually accept it. Okay, so now you have your cover in a PDF format. You've published your book into a PDF format that follows all the guidelines of IngramSpark. You'll upload those onto their website. They will do their proof checks on it, and then it will be time to decide on costs and distribution. You'll go fill out everything they have for you. It's simple, they walk you right through it, and then you are ready to schedule your release date. One other step that I would probably include in here, and I would have probably done it earlier, sometime around the time I start getting my cover artist put together, is I would look for a voiceover artist, because audiobooks are taking the world by storm. In many instances, I believe that they are cannibalizing the written market. So I would not overlook getting your book turned into an audiobook. To do that, you can go online, find a whole lot of freelance artists that are happy to read your book and format it in a way that you can turn it into an audiobook. I believe that Amazon has some of the stricter guidelines, so you'll probably want to follow their formatting, but you don't have to use Amazon to publish it. For me, I use Findaway Voices by Spotify. They can get your book into Audible, but they can also get it into a whole lot of other platforms out there also. Now, I like this because I like mass distribution. I like to have as many people looking at my books as I can get eyes on. But if you want to just stay in Amazon's world, then that's fine too. There's also other self-publishing websites out there. I don't know all of them, but if you do some Google searching, I'm sure you'll find plenty. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you are going to be your own marketer on this. With traditional publishing, you might have some people who help you market, but you're still a marketer with them also. So, I mean, take it for what it's worth. But your marketing efforts are going to be completely reliant on you. You're not going to be able to ask anyone for any help on this. It's going to be just you and whatever friends and family you can get to help spread the word. Maybe you have a following already. Maybe you have a lot of friends on Facebook. But in any case, you're going to need to find a way to market your book. And I would suggest doing a little bit of a campaign first. We can actually talk about this in later episodes because marketing is a really big topic, and I don't have time to talk about that today. But in any case, congratulations, you've self-published your book. Now you need to find buyers for it. All right, so back to my daily short that I did at the beginning of the video. I felt like this was an apt subject. I was looking for something that could help transition us from going the traditional publishing route to the self-publishing route. And what better way than some athlete who's wanting to get all fit and he starts taking the right steps and then finds out it's very hard and gives up. And that's kind of like us, you know, we go through and we get so many rejection letters and then finally we say, you know what, I'm just going to self-publish. And hey, you know, some people make a really good living at self-publishing their books. There's going to be people out there who say that you should really never do that, that you should go the traditional publishing route. But you know what? Sometimes we just go our own way and we make things happen. Okay, so for this, I just used a little bit of stock footage and I mingled it with some live action footage. Didn't have a whole lot of time to shoot this, so what we did is just went to a gym here, a home gym, and I set up some lights. I decided to go with a red and blue sort of a vibe. You know, you get those boxer videos where they throw a lot of smoke and haze around and they got these colored lights, and kind of trying to go for that sort of a look. Even though I haven't really been in a gym that has that kind of lighting before or that kind of atmosphere. Granted, I've never been to a boxing gym, but most gyms I've been to, it hasn't been this dark. It's usually been very well lit. But, we're kind of given that mood, that sense of feel there. So we got this going here. You got your guy. He's looking for exercise equipment to do, and he's got his bikes there. All right, so we got the barbells. So he's throwing his talc powder on his hand. He's going to get ready to go to work. Again, I've got the Aperture 300 shining a blue gelled light onto the right side of the frame. And then I've got a Dracast 1000 panel with a red gel on the other side, just kind of giving that contrast to fill in the shadows. So my Aperture 300 is just off the side of this, shining straight down into here. I'm not using any soft boxes, so you can see I've got some nice hard lighting coming onto him. But without any light on this side, this whole half of his face would have been in complete darkness, just like the background is. So that's why I have the Dracast over here, and it's turned down pretty low, just giving enough of a red glow to show some definition on this side. So we're key lighting from the back and filling from the side. I use this rag as a metaphor for throwing in the towel. So throwing in the towel for traditional publishing and going all in on self-publishing. Don't know if anyone else caught that other than me. But I filmed this all, again, like I was doing on the last couple films of mine, using my Samsung S25. Had the two lights, both of them were gelled. Actually had a mist machine, or a smoke machine going in the background there, though I don't know that it really added much dimension or texture because I didn't have enough lights with me to light the equipment behind the bench. I could have turned the exposure up on my camera. However, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want extra spill light coming in from the outside and affecting the mood lighting that I had going on here. But I got a good segue into today's topic, and I told it in 50 seconds, and it was pretty simple. Let me know what you thought about it. And if you have any other ideas on self-publishing, maybe things that you could share with me or with anyone else who's going to be watching this, please share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if any of this was helpful, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.